How's it going, everybody? How are we doing? I hope you're all doing well. This is the Ben Burnside Podcast. Uh, this will be the review show for UFC 251 Fight Island. What a card it was. Memorable night. As I'm trying to still look at the camera. But hey, check out what I got here. Got my St. Louis Rams hat and my mask, living the COVID life, straight up, while watching Fight Island. It's dope. So anyway, that's my mask. As you can tell, I'm a huge Rams fan, so I enjoy wearing that very much. But yes, here I am talking about Fight Island. That's what this video is basically going to cover. It's going to cover basically what I saw from UFC 251 that took place in Abu Dhabi, what they call Fight Island, because it's basic their form of an island, I guess, for having their fighters go due to wanting to separate fighters and staff from everybody else due to the pandemic. Pretty creative concept for the UFC, first of its kind, as I get the card up here so I can describe the results. Basically, I'm going to be talking about the results of this card to see, to kind of show you or kind of tell you the results of what happened and what I thought about them. I thought the show was a pretty solid show. I very much liked it overall. Is it the best UFC pay-per-view I've ever seen? No, I didn't expect it to be. But for what it was worth, for what they built it, I thought they did good. I thought they delivered. So overall, I was pleased. I had a fun-filled night. And I kind of enjoyed it. You know, there's not a whole lot of activities to look forward to, quite frankly, these days, because we've been locked up for COVID for so long. I mean, this has started in March. We're almost 4 months from the complete shutdown now, so that's like an eternity for Americans here. So it's nice that we get some fun with these MMA cards that are taking place in the world of sports when nothing else is. So that's pretty cool. But I won't waste any time. Let's get right into it because, I'm looking forward to this. I'll start with, so the card itself, it had 3 parts to it. It had the first few pairing of fights on the card at the bottom of it. They called that the early prelims, basically the curtain jerkers of that started the show and got the fans into it. And then they got the preliminary card, which was still on TV, or the main fights that were still on cable TV before they went to pay-per-view. These were more exciting fights, and it had a debut in there that was freaking phenomenal. I'll talk about that. And obviously the last part of the card are the main fights, including the main event, along with the 2 co-main event fights, which were this card had 3 title fights. The UFC has only done that 4 other times in its 25-year history. So it was a big night. The UFC wanted to make sure it was an important night, and because this was a special card. This was the first card that took place in like an island of sorts, in such a secluded place like this, and it was a special circumstance, and it was a special setting. Like I said, it wasn't exactly an island like the UFC promoted it to be. They called it Fight Island, but really it took place in Abu Dhabi in the United Emirates. I don't know if that's exactly an island. I think it's more of a country. In fact, let me get the world map. That will probably help. Let me get the world maps here. See, I got a map right there, but that's the United States map, you know. It's not much of an island. I mean, yeah, not much of an island in the United States. I mean, I guess we have the closest thing that looks to like an island here is like Florida, and that's like an island of death and gators and idiots, and I don't know. Anyway, no, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Yeah, you know, I'm just making fun of the state that made claimed that professional wrestling was an essential business during a pandemic. But okay, I digress. Let's go to the world map. Let's see here. World map. United Emirates. Let's check it out here. Here on Google Images. Selecting a picture. And sorry that you guys can't see this. I'm going to try to get a webcam and try to figure that out, because I know there's YouTube videos where you could see my computer screen and what I'm doing. So I'm gonna figure that stuff out over time, and kind of my goal is to incorporate that into the show as I progress skill wise. So that's one of my next goals. So let me take a look here and see as my computer is loading. So yeah, the UFC, they really wanted to make this card a big deal, and because this is also the first card that's taking place outside of the United States since this whole thing occurred with the pandemic. Being the case, this is the first card that can happen where Dana White, the UFC president, along with his team of staff members, they could finally invite fighters that are living outside of the United States to go and fight at a UFC event, because obviously the United States won't let basically anybody in right now outside of America. So because, you know, obviously they want to contain outbreak of the virus as much as possible. So because of that, the UFC has been running events in specifically Jacksonville, Florida. Again, you know, who cares about COVID over there? But they've been running events specifically in Jacksonville, Florida, where they've only been using mainly American fighters, along with international fighters that I believe just happened to be living in America at the time, or they couldn't make it home in time. I think that's the case for a couple of international fighters. They couldn't make it home in time before the travel bans happened. And obviously the travel bans doesn't just include the United States banning everybody. It's other countries are, I'm sure, preventing us from going over there. Obviously the European travel ban and all that stuff. So New Zealand is another one that I've heard about, where they didn't let anybody in. New Zealand, though, I heard that they don't have any cases and it's kind of like back to normal. I don't know if they're letting anybody in still. I doubt it personally. That's my first guess. But New Zealand is one of those countries that's been handling it super well. So pretty crazy how successful they were. But let's see here. 10 minutes in, I haven't even gotten into the card yet. The world map photo, Abu Dhabi, checking, see, damn, I don't know where that's at. Uzbekistan, no, Iran, India, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. Alexa, Where is the United Emirates?
The United Arab Emirates is a country in the Middle East and Western Asia. It shares a border with Saudi Arabia and Oman.
Oh, damn. Oh, I see it. That probably is an island. Super tiny. Whoa, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense why they call it Fight Island. It looks pretty tiny according to this map on here. So, damn. I didn't know it was that small. If anything, I thought it was like, I don't know. I didn't know. I was wondering if it was even a country. Like, I don't really know much about the United Emirates. So, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool that Dana White in the UFC was able to pick that up. And according to Dana White in the post-fight press conference of the pay-per-view, and before the pay-per-view took place, he very much complimented the service of the people that represent the United Emirates. He said, and you could tell what he was talking about based off the building. I mean, the building was like state of the art. What they had, and they had an outside octagon just for show. They didn't, not even for the fights. The fighting octagon was in an arena. They had built-in rooms into this arena. They built it. They built the set. They had a giant UFC sign just out in the beach by that outside octagon. They had a hotel for the fighters specifically. Again, this whole area of the event, it was isolated like in the desert. It was within it was separate in a 10-mile radius from everything else around them completely. So the fighters were isolated from the outside world basically while going here. And to my understanding at least. And they basically were in quarantine the whole time. And along with the hotel, they had restaurants. They had a beach you could go to. I think they had other stuff. They maybe had a gym. I don't know if they had a gym, but they had state-of-the-art facilities all around to accommodate everybody there. And and then they had the fights, and they go home. And it looks like that this area that the UFC and along with the people representing Abu Dhabi have, along with those groups, they're all going to hold this area for Fight Islands going forward, and it should be, and that will be an opening gateway for all the international fighters, so all the international fighters can fight during the pandemic. Just like how the people that are in America, they have areas where they can fight during the pandemic. So the UFC is, I would say the UFC has defeated any organization in pro wrestling right now as being the most successful sporting company in all of sports to keep their operations going during the pandemic. I don't really think it's that close because they're doing. I don't think it's that close because they're doing it so productively, but at the same time they're also doing it in the most ethical way possible. To where I was totally against their movement to continue operations, and I was like angry about it. I posted on social media. I wish I didn't do that, but I was angry about it vehemently on social media, to where they proved me wrong over and over, to where I supported it and to where I complimented it and to where I buy this pay-per-view, which is like almost $80. I bought it. That's impressive. That's impressive. They proved me wrong by how ethical they've been running their entire operation. And sorry if I'm not looking at the camera, but I don't know. I'm trying with camera thing, but they've been proving me wrong entirely, just by doing it, by doing the right thing all the time. And just for this pay-per-view alone, they did 8,000 tests for this pay-per-view, to my knowledge. I think I got that right. It's for just this pay-per-view alone. Or maybe that's for all their events. I don't know. But they said they've done 8,000 tests, and I can totally believe that. The UFC's been coughing up money for the tests so they could run operations, and I gotta admire them for that. To be that responsible in order to run their operations, I gotta admire that, and I gotta give them quite a bit of credit. I totally was not on Dana White's support team when he decided to very aggressively go forward with just keeping operations going during the pandemic. But he did what he had to do, and he did it. Him and his company have been super safe and super cautious in making sure everything was safe, so then the show can go on. And just as an example, all the fighters for this pay-per-view, they had to be tested 3 times, I believe, or at least the 2 guys in the main event, they had to be tested 3 times before actually fighting. They had to be tested in the UFC headquarters in Las Vegas, Nevada. Then when they flew to Abu Dhabi, they had to be tested. And then I think before weigh, they had to be tested again, and then they would fight in the COVID-free zone, and then they would fight. And wow, and the UFC's kind of run an operation like that throughout all their events during the pandemic, and because of that, they've earned it. They've earned me buying the pay-per-view, and I think they've earned all the attention too, in a rightful way. You know, and that's kind of where I stand on it. I was totally against the UFC, Dana White, vehemently, for just not even really pausing operations. But they had a reason for that, and that's because they had a vision to getting it right, and that's what they did. I gotta give them credit for that. I mean, they did what they had to do to make sure that it was safe, and that's what they did. Bravo! I really think people should watch mixed martial arts for that, just for them being responsible. Pro wrestling, on the other hand, they have not been responsible, particularly WWE. They started running COVID tests last week. To my knowledge, either last week or 2 weeks ago, during a pandemic that's been going on already for 3.5 months in terms of shutdown status, and I think their rival company, All Elite Wrestling, AEW, they've been okay. They've been pretty strong, a lot better than WWE. I think a dog could be better in terms of effort against COVID than WWE can. But you know, the UFC's been way better than either organization, and they deserve all the attention that they're getting right now. They really do. I'm very impressed with their work. But anyway, let's get back into the card here. Enough praising. I'm going to praise this entire card by talking about it, because that's what I like to do. So here we go. I did predictions for this card, and I'll mention that as well during my review. So the show started out, they had like a bunch of pre-fight shows. They which featured like guests like The Rock making an interview appearance of who he'll think he'll win, along with Charlize Theron promoting her action movie on Netflix. Uh, and there were other analysts talking about the fights tonight too. So yeah, good stuff. Not much to really say there. First fight of the night featured awesome knockout. Just a nice hook. I believe it's a hook right to the chin of an opponent. It was a bantamweight fight between Hawaiian Martin Day and Englishman Davy Grant, who's been in the UFC for a while. Fight looked pretty competitive in the first two rounds. I thought I scored it 1-1 in the first two rounds. But Davy Grant, somewhere in the third round, in the middle, he managed to get Martin Day with a hook, and Martin Day went out. He fell flatlined right on the floor, and Davy Grant got the win. I believe that's the second win in a row. It was an awesome knockout. It was a pitch perfect knockout by a veteran who's apparently been fighting for a number of years now. He's 34 years old. I would have. Yeah, he's won 2 as of late. I think Davy Grant. That's an awesome win. That was an awesome win. I really like that knockout. Not the best knockout of the night, unfortunately, out of the 2 knockouts from tonight. But I think this was awesome. And I really hope Davy Grant gets a very talented opponent for his next fight, because he deserves it. This fight took place in the bantamweight division, so I think Martin Day is still relatively new in the UFC, so he'll be back. He just wasn't his night. Davy Grant, I could see him fighting a veteran like Eddie Wineland for his next fight, something like that. That would be pretty interesting. A veteran, a former WEC champion, who just got knocked out by Sean O'Malley, so he goes down the rankings. Davy goes up. Natural meetup in the pecking order there. From men's bantamweight, we go to women's bantamweight. 2 Brazilian women, Carol Rosa, who's a teammate of former UFC strawweight champion Jessica Andrade, who fights in the main part of this show. She fights Vanessa Melo. Vanessa missed weight for this fight by 5 pounds. The weight limit for bantamweight for both men and women are 135 pounds in MMA. So Vanessa was about 140. I've heard from analysts, from 2 expert analysts in MMA. One's a former fighter, and another's a former referee. The referee, known as John McCarthy, who's probably the best MMA referee easily in MMA history, he said that being 5 pounds higher than the set weight for the weight class, from not making weight, he says that's not even trying. That's like you're not even trying to make weight. Vanessa had pretty big thighs, noticeably during the fight, and the commentator Michael Bisping, he acknowledged that immediately at the beginning of the fight. Big girl. I mean, I don't know. It seems harder for women to lose weight than men when weight cutting happens. And weight cutting is a pretty it's a typical process that happens in the sport of MMA. There's weight limits that fighters have to fight by fighting day. Oh, And whew, got me there, man. But yeah, they have to make a certain weight limit by fight day, and if you don't make that limit, then you lose some of the fighting purse before the fight even happens, because you're you it's an agreement between you and your opponent to fight at an equal weight. So size and weight, in theory, I guess that's just in my opinion, it won't be an excuse when you fight them. And it clearly couldn't be the case in this fight. But it didn't matter. Vanessa didn't win the fight. Carol ended up winning by decision. Carol looked more skilled in this fight. She just completely outboxed Vanessa in this fight, and she handled the take. She did all the takedowns. I mean, Carol Rosa really took control in this entire fight, and apparently she's improving a lot. Where I can see these two go based off this decision win, uh, Carol, I could see her moving up in in the women's bantamweight division. Obviously, I could see her fighting a Marion Renault, who's I'm in Fresno, California. Marion's only lives apparently only an hour by me in Visalia. Um, she just fought a former title challenger in Raquel Pennington and lost. Um, so I could see Marion fighting a up and coming contender like Carol. I think that would be interesting. Fight could be a changing of the guard thing possibly. I hope not, since she's Marion from Visalia. Carol is 25. Marion is 40 or 41 years old. So I mean, it's age-wise, it would make sense. The idea of the changing of the guard in the rankings, with one going up and one going down, it makes sense. Vanessa, her opponent, honestly, with the weight cut and her record of 10-8, I can see her getting released from this fight. I think she lost her last fight too. Yeah, I could see, even though the women's bantamweight division is pretty thin, there's not a lot of women in it, I could still see her getting released. Um, so yeah, that's my take on it. Next fight on the card was a men's flyweight fight. These are men at 125 pounds, so some small guys. Small but extremely technical. You have Raulian Paiva, who's a Brazilian, very talented, was ranked number 14 in this weight class before the fight happened. He will fight a guy making his debut, but with a well-known following, apparently in the MMA community. His name is Zalgas Zumagulov. He is from Kazakhstan. Fight was very competitive. There were a couple of times where Paiva kicked Zumagulov right in the balls twice. In the first one, Paiva kicked him right in his pants, like right in the crotch, with his toes extending out. So it's like, really digged in. And Zumagulov took almost all 5 minutes to recover. You get a scheduled time of 5 minutes to recover after a nut shot in the sport. So he was in a lot of pain. He was lying down while moaning. I don't blame him for moaning. That was brutal. You know, honestly, I thought Zumagulov won the fight when I saw it. So I thought this was a bad decision by the judges, and I don't think Paiva should have won. I thought Zumagulov got the job done, but I don't know. It is what it is. Dana White, he says this all the time, and I hate it when he says it, but in a way it's true. I mean, don't leave it up to the judges. You never know with these judges. in terms of them making the decision win, if the responsibility of who wins lands on the three judges outside of the octagon in order to make a decision of who wins because someone didn't get knocked out or submitted. There's a long history of judges who just make bad decision choices of who won, and that really affects the careers of fighters based off wins and losses. So you know, it's always frustrating for me to see a fighter lose, even though I think he won, but the judges got it wrong, and so it's frustrating for sure. The final fight in the early prelims involves a heavyweight clash. Heavyweight is a weight class that's, it's wild with that weight because it's like you can be at the very least 225 pounds. At the heaviest, you can only be 265 pounds. It's the only weight class where there's such a gigantic window there. So it's kind of crazy. Sorry, it's late in the night. But you have Marcin Tybura, who's a well-known Polish fighter, been on the UFC roster for a long time, and has been making who is a winner in this division. He has lost. He isn't a big contender fighter in the heavyweight rankings. He's had some vicious knockouts to make sure that doesn't happen, but lately he did win his last fight. He faces a newcomer for this card, a Russian named Maxim Grishin. Coming into this fight, he had 30 wins, 7 losses, and 2 draws. And the guy, when you see these two together, there's a clear size difference given that window of how much you can weigh in this division. Maxine it's very clear he took this fight on short notice because he made the weight limit at 225 pounds. He fights more as a light heavyweight than a heavyweight. That's the division he typically fights at. And he cuts weight there to make it to 205 pounds. Marcin, though, is a very natural heavyweight. He was in the 260s for this fight. So there's a clear weight advantage, and along with Marcin seemingly being more skilled in the grappling department between these two, Marcin ended up getting the job done by kind of grappling him to the cage and laying on him for submission threats throughout most of the fight. So Marcin chalked up another win to go back up the rankings. Hopefully he gets a notable name for the heavyweight division going forward. This guy's been around for a while, and he's shown that he's nobody to play with in this division. Maxime, it's clear to me that he got a short notice call to participate in this fight, and he accepted in order to sign with the UFC, because this is his UFC debut. Hopefully he is able to get a few more opportunities with the organization, and so from doing that, he won't get any fights where he's called on short notice, and therefore he will cut weight to go to his more natural weight class of 205, not face bigger guys at heavyweight. I forgot about the last fight, where I think the two guys will go. In terms of Paiva, obviously he'll go up the rankings. I don't think he should. I think he should stay where he's at because I thought he lost. It was a bad decision, but that's not how it's going to work. He's going to go up. Zalgas, he'll fight again. This was also his debut. He'll fight maybe someone at ranked number 15 or a guy that's unranked will fight someone there. So that's kind of how it will go. We will now go to the preliminary card, the middle portion of the fight card. The first fight in this slot these out of these 4 fights is one of the weirder fights that I've ever seen. This was a lightweight men's fight. Lightweight is 155 pounds. The fight featured a Brazilian named Leonardo Santos, who's 40 years old, but he has done nothing but win in the UFC in the few times that he's fought. He fights a newcomer, another Russian newcomer making his debut, named Roman Bogatov, who was 10-0 coming into this fight. This is easily the best. This is probably the best competition Bogatov's ever had, though, considering that UFC is the major leagues in MMA. So it's going to be interesting. Fight turned out crazy at first. Leonardo won the first round. He had Bogatov in a lot of trouble in the second round. I thought the fight arguably should have been stopped. Bogatov was taking a lot of big shots from Leonardo, and Leonardo was hammering him throughout that. And he was hammering him to the point where when they got on the ground, Leonardo punched himself out. He ran out of gas and energy. So Bogatov was able to recover while on the ground, and he almost finished Leonardo before the second round ended. But that Leonardo didn't get finished. Before I think this round ended, Bogatov kicked Leonardo in the balls once, another ball shot in this card, and Leonardo I think was in pain. In the third round came up, and this is where the weirdness really began. I think Bogatov was controlling the third round, but Bogatov kicked him in the balls again in the third round. The referee of this fight, who's probably the best active referee in an MMA going today since John McCarthy retired, this referee's name is Mark Goddard. Goddard gave Bogatov a stern warning for the second low blow. With that low blow, I was kind of surprised that he didn't take a point away from him. I thought he should have done that, but since these fights are scored off points from the judges, if they go to a decision. So I was kind of bummed that Bogatov didn't have a point taken away from him because I thought he deserved it. But then Leonardo was getting beaten up by Bogatov in the cage, and Leonardo had one knee lying on the mat in the octagon. Oh, jeez. Don't do these podcasts in that. Oh, you old geezer. But, Leonardo had his knee down. He was clearly still tired from punching himself out in the second round. But Bogatov, while the knee was down, Bogatov was standing, and he decided to throw a knee strike right in Leonardo's face. Mark Goddard immediately cut in the fight, and he's like, "Hey, man, come on, what's wrong with you?" Because, according to MMA rule, or at least the rules in the UFC, you can't strike a downed opponent while he's down and you're up. A downed opponent in this sport implies that you have at least one knee down, and that's what Leonardo had. He had one knee down. It was pretty obvious he had one knee down, but Bogatov still slammed him with the knee. And so after that, Mark Goddard took 2 points away from Bogatov, which made the total, the fight total, a 29-26 win for Santos, who moved on and maybe he will face a ranked fighter now. And I think it's important to mention that if Bogotov's didn't get those 2 points taken away from him, he still would have lost the fight to Leonardo, 29-28. So they had Leonardo win at least 2 rounds of the 3 rounds where they fought. So, to me, Leonardo, that's very impressive. Leonardo's 40 years old. That's pretty old to be an MMA fighter. And so he's fought in this organization since, I believe, 2013, and he hasn't lost a fight yet. So maybe it's time to give Leonardo a ranked fight in the most competitive weight division in all of MMA, which is the lightweight division. Leonardo has earned a shot at a ranked guy, or a guy that's at least very close to the rankings himself. As for Bogotov, this is his debut. He made mistakes. He'll get better, but he'll be due for a couple more fights to prove himself a little more before. If he loses those 2 fights, he'll get released. But that's usually the standard for someone who debuts. They get at least 2 more fights before they get kicked out for losing. So that's how it works. In featherweight, you had Makwan Amirkhani taking on Danny Henry. This fight was very impressive. It only lasted 1 round. Makwan was able to choke him out due to some kind of I don't know what kind of choke it was, but Makwan submitted him. Right after the fight, Makwan put Danny Henry's legs upwards, because Danny was out cold on his back on the mat. He put his feet upwards so blood can go to his head. And he did this before the doctors could come in and do that themselves. Super classy by this Makwan Amirkhani, who's from Finland, originally from Turkmenistan or something. I think that's how you say it, Turkmenistan. So yeah, I'm very impressed by this Amirkhani. I think he'll get a ranked featherweight going for his next fight. He's a very likable fighter to see. Oh man, that's how it'd be if I get choked out. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I think Makwan will fight a very tough ranked featherweight for his next fight. Danny Henry, he's not out of the UFC. I think he'll get another fight in an extremely competitive men's featherweight division. Featherweight, just to let you know, is 145 pounds. So definitely a featherweight. Next fight in the prelims was a welterweight scrap between Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos from Brazil versus a Russian by the name of Muslim Salikov. This was a stand-up fight for the most part. Neither of them really took it to the ground. Dos Santos is a black belt in capoeira striking, which has some stylistic, pretty-looking strikes and kicks. But he's a black belt in that, so very effective and devastating if you get into a fight with him. His opponent is a striker himself. His nickname is the King of Kung Fu, Muslim Salikov. He is a former Kung Fu world champion of some kind of specific striking Kung Fu art. I don't know what it is, but very credible, both fighters, for their accomplishments. Competitive fight, but to me, Muslim fought a more aggressive fight, I want to say. It's extremely close between the two. It's really hard to tell. Muslim, he had his kicks and strikes were more devastating from what I remember, so I didn't have a whole lot of issues. Well, did I? I wonder if this is the fight I don't really remember, to be honest. But I might have had an issue with Dos Santos not winning, but honestly, I don't remember. I think Dos Santos will just fight another really tough welterweight. With this loss, he still won 7 of his last 9 fights. I mean, he's a very impressive welterweight, and he's proven himself. So I think he's going to be fine. Muslim, he's going to be in the same area as Dos Santos, maybe a little bit more ahead, but he'll fight another super ranked, super tough welterweight. Maybe not ranked, but right there, right there. Feature preliminary fight for the preliminary card portion of the show featured a light heavyweight match at 205 pounds between former title challenger Volkan Ozdemir from Switzerland versus, or no, he's from Czech Republic, versus a man making his debut from Switzerland, super talented guy, scary looking guy. His name is Yuri Jiri Porachka, Prochazka. This guy's an artist, dude. It's kind of scary how good he is. It's kind of scary. I think this guy's somebody to not mess with going forward. You know, the way he fights, he doesn't even block. He kept doing these juke moves and stuff. And he's a super giant guy, too. Before coming in, he was 26-3-1, and he won multiple regional championships before coming into the big leagues in the UFC. He was offered a contract years ago to fight in the UFC, but he, in a rare fashion, declined it because he wanted to get better in his own craft. To where when he comes in, he does performances like this. This was crazy. Volkan got the brakes beat off in this fight. Well, I wouldn't say that. I'd say he did a hard shot to where Yuri was in trouble in the first round. But Yuri put it on Volkan in the second round, and he got into the cage finally. Did some kind of setup shot and just did a right hook. Boom, right on the money. Right on the money to Ozdemir. Ozdemir folded like a damn lawn chair. It was just nuts. This Yuri Porachka is the real deal. It's the real deal. I think, I don't know. I really think this Yuri Porachka will be a problem for John Jones if he keeps winning. So the light heavyweight division is getting harder and harder and harder for the greatest of all time, the current UFC light heavyweight champion, John Jones. And I'm looking more and more forward to seeing how he will respond to so many new challenges now. He used to clean out this division. Now it's back to being dirty in this division. So we'll see how it goes. But this Yuri Porachka, I was visualizing this guy in my head when I saw his highlights and the music to the highlight video. And he comes off as this ultra villain who could mess everybody up if you're not careful. And I think John Jones is the hero to deal with that. Hopefully, who knows. Now we go to the main card of this show. This was awesome. This was a great part of the card. Let's get right into it. The first fight of the main card, which is on pay-per-view now. This pay-per-view was like almost $80. I better own this pay-per-view. Whether I am subscribed to ESPN Plus or not. If I go to ESPN Plus's website, I better have an option that says this pay-per-view is available for me, because I bought it for almost $80. And I hope there's an option where I don't have to subscribe to watch it, because I paid enough for it, quite frankly. But first fight was women's flyweight. Amanda Ribas versus Paige Van Zandt. This fight took place at 125 pounds for the women. This Paige Van Zandt, she's a kind of like a girl heartthrob for the fans, and the UFC's well aware of that. She's a super attractive girl, so it's very much we see why she's being booked so strongly. Paige, though, is very good at marketing, and she has marketed herself outside of the UFC to where she really puts faith in herself and what she does. So after this fight, she says she's going to test the market in the MMA, of other MMA businesses being interested in her, because she is out of her contract with the UFC after this fight. So, she did leave with a bad taste in her mouth, though, if she's leaving the UFC. Amanda Ribas submitted her in the first round, no problem, via armbar. This woman's super talented as this martial artist. I mean, super high-level black belt in jiu-jitsu, clearly. Very skilled in judo and taking people down. She's a beast. And she wants to fight in 2 different weight classes to win 2 different titles, which is very uncommon. This woman can be a big problem. She's a super sweet girl, too. Like, when just listen to one of her interviews, she comes off super bubbly and stuff, this Amanda Ribas. And so does Paige Van Zandt, but Amanda Ribas is going to be a serious problem going forward for all the women that are sticking around in the UFC. Best of luck to Paige. What I think is going to happen here is I think Paige is going to go to Bellator MMA. I think she's going to sign with them and get a nice lucrative contract for herself. And I think she's going to really hone her skills there and become a serious threat as she comes back to the UFC in a few years. Amanda Ribas, though, she will be a big threat in the very near future by getting more and more harder fights. But I think she has the ability to go through them and really fight for any championship. It's very interesting to see how she will play out going forward. So, yeah. Ooh, that's coming at it. God damn it. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. What I think about the last couple fight, the main prelim fight where they'll go, I forgot about them. Volkan, I think this is a step back for him, quite frankly. This was not in his plan. I think he's going to fight someone in the lower part of the top 15 for his next fight. That seems to make sense. Volkan's not out of it, but this was definitely a step back for him, unfortunately. Yuri Prochazka, though, I mean, this guy can main event a card already. I mean, he's so talented. I see him fighting top 5 contenders right off the bat. This guy's ready. And John Jones, pay close attention. Pay close attention. I mean, this guy could be a serious problem going down the road. No disrespect, Mr. Jones, but yeah, I'm just wanted to make you aware that this guy seems like he's something special. He's this Yuri Prochazka. So be careful. Be careful with some of these new guys. They are nothing to mess with. Next fight on the main card was the final fight that's not a title fight on this show. It is a former title fight in the women's strawweight division. Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. As I told you in the preview show, Jessica defeated Rose for the strawweight title. Jessica's no longer the champion anymore, but Rose was beating her up pretty good in their first fight against each other last year. It looked like Rose was on her way to win. But Jessica grabbed a hold of Rose, and she's infinitely the strongest girl in this division. She picked her up, threw her right on her head, slammed her on the mat, all because Rose apparently didn't let go, according to a lot of analysts. But Nevertheless, she got knocked out. Jessica Andrade won the strawweight championship at the time, and Rose's Rose wasn't trying to get revenge for this fight, but she definitely had something to prove in this fight, and I think she proved it. She beat Jessica Andrade this time around, and she did that by capitalizing in her boxing. Jessica was really damaging Rose in the third round, though, so that's what, and she almost stopped Rose, and that to me is what made the fight 29-28. I thought it was very impressive. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Jessica, I could see her fighting an upcoming fighter in the strawweight rankings. Maybe Amanda Ribas, but I don't know. That seems too soon. Maybe who's the girl that just fought Claudia Gadelha? I forgot her name. But there's a lot of suitable candidates in the strawweight division. She could fight, so we'll see where that goes. Next up will be Rose Namajunas. I could see Rose fighting the champion at strawweight, Weili Zhang out of China. I really think that would be a very interesting fight. See what happens. So we'll see where that goes. But I see her as a very possible next title challenger for the fight. Once she recovers, she got a shiner black eye in this fight. Jessica Andrade does not play around. She is a serious challenger. Hello again. I am back. Just taking a quick break. Went through a bunch of fights just now, specifically 10 fights before getting to the 3 title fights in this card. Just wanted to take a quick break. Let's waste no time, though. Let's get to the first title fight. The first title fight of this card was for the vacant bantamweight championship for the men at 135 pounds. It was between Peter Yan. It's actually Petr. I think it's Petr Yan out of Russia. More specifically, I think Siberia. So in the deep north. Don't want to go there. But his opponent was an MMA legend, the king of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Jose Aldo. This is only Aldo's second fight at 135 pounds. He's more of a king he was the king, I should say, at men's featherweight at 145. Ironically, though, he is, or in a funny way, he's actually saying that the weight cut to 135 is easy for him than it was at 145. And that's because he said he has, for the first time in his career, a dietitian to really take care of his weight loss in terms of dieting. And he's never had that before. So it's kind of freakish how that worked out for him, because that's not how it usually works for fighters. Petr Yan, though, he is about 7 years younger than Jose, and is a lot less seasoned than Jose, even though Jose is only 33, and Petr's an elite boxer, while Jose is very strong with his kicks, as a former soccer player at a high level. So it was a close fight at first, with Jose winning maybe 2 rounds, but Jose noticeably went away from kicking him in the legs, which was a lot of damage to Petr. But Petr took advantage of that. He ended up striking him a lot, which he's really good at. He's a high-level boxer himself. So he ended up beating up Jose to the point where in the 5th round, he stopped him by technical knockout by striking him a lot in the ground. And the way that fight ended was really bad stoppage. I thought it was horrible. The referee, who was Leon Roberts, He's a good referee, which is kind of surprising. He didn't do it. He didn't stop the fight. And Peter was hitting Jose in the back of the head a lot. And it was really bad. It's a horrible stoppage. Dana White said in the post-fight press conference after the show went off the air, he said maybe we should cut down the roster of referees after this show. I don't know if that's fair to a guy like Leon Roberts, who's a well-known referee of their roster. The most seasoned and combined with best active referee on their roster, Herb Dean, he's made some horrendous stoppages in his career as well. A couple, not a whole lot, but he made one even as recent as 1 to 2 years ago, and he's still on the roster. So, look, this being a referee is a nearly impossible job in the sport, and so you're going to make mistakes. Even though this was, to me, an egregious mistake, it still was only one mistake I've seen of Leon Roberts, so I hope he doesn't get fired or cut or anything. It's going to be really hard to beat Peter Young for this. I'm going to call him Peter. It's easier to say than Petr. Then it's going to be pretty difficult to beat Peter Yan as the new champion. He was called out a lot by fighters in that weight class by Twitter as he won the fight. He got called out by Henry Cejudo, who was the last guy to hold the championship, but who retired 2 months ago because I think he wants to be paid more. So he's doing negotiation tactics with the UFC to get money. Jose, I don't know. He's going to stay at. I don't think he's done, really. He's only 33 years old. He's been through wars, though, to where you think he's like 40 or 42. But he's been in so many fights, and he's been known as the greatest of all time, and one of the greatest of all time, particularly in the featherweight division of the sport. So he still has a lot he can do, and he could even reasonably fight back for another title shot, but he'll really have to fight back now to get that. And he's gonna fight a high level guy still. I think. I don't really think this is a step back for him because in his previous fight, which was his bantamweight debut, he beat the guy who was number 1 right now in the rankings. So, but he lost that fight in a bad judge's decision call. So that's what I think is going to happen. Yeah, Peter Yan, I think he's going to defend his belt against the guy who won in the last pay-per-view, Aljamain Sterling. I think, he will fight him. I think it's a pretty obvious title fight between those two for the next fight. The next fight, which was the co-main event of this show, behind the main event, was for the featherweight championship. It was between Alexander Volkanovski taking on Max Holloway. Volkanovski is a beast. There's no doubt about it. These two fought in December. Max was on the tear where he's now to the point where he's now considered the greatest men's featherweight fighter that's ever walked the earth, ahead of Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor. And he deserves it. He was like on a 13, 14 fight win streak before losing his last couple fights to Dustin Poirier for a lightweight championship. And then to this guy, Alexander Volkanovski, who's now the champion. It was apparently a really close fight. I didn't see it. But Holloway thought he won that fight, and Volkanovski, the judges apparently didn't see it that way. They had Volkanovski edge it out. I honestly don't know who won this fight. This fight was incredibly close. I think I picked Alexander Volkanovski to win, and that's what happened. He ended up winning the fight. Uh, you know, this is a championship fight, which means it has 5 rounds, and Volkanovski is a monster. I mean, he got teed off though in the first couple rounds to where Max won the first 2. Volkanovski though edged him out in the last 2 rounds. So per usual in these 5-round fights, it always goes to that middle round in the 3rd round. So Holloway landed more strikes in the 3rd round, but Volkanovski I think landed more effective strikes in the 3rd round. So that's where I think Volkanovski edged out Holloway to win. That's what I think happened. But a lot of high-level experts in the sport who analyze it disagree with me, so maybe I got it wrong. So it's not easy to be a judge, just like how it's not easy to be a referee in this sport. I will say that about judging. And it especially sucks with fights like these because you really can't blame the judges, even though you can. But I don't know. I really think you can't blame them because it's so close. It's so close. The person who made the rules for MMA, John McCarthy, who I mentioned earlier, as a referee, he thought the judges sucked because of this decision. He thought it was the wrong decision. And that's where I'm willing to think, maybe we should investigate these judges to see if they need to be demoted as judges who don't judge in the UFC, but maybe in a smaller show in MMA, and then they have to go back up. So maybe they need to do that or something. Because this was unfortunate that it had to be this controversial. Let's go to the main event. Oh, as for where the fighters will go, this was Max's rematch, and people thought he won, which really sucks, because now he can't fight for the title anytime soon. I see Max fighting a guy like I don't know, maybe Calvin Kattar if he wins his fight this Wednesday. I could see that happening. Alexander Volkanovski, it's going to be hard to see who he fights next for the featherweight title. There's a lot of possibilities. It could be that Russian, Zabit Nurmagomedov, who fights next. Or it could be the winner of Brian Ortega versus Chan Sung Jung, the Korean zombie, is what he's nicknamed. He has a number of people who are willing to fight him, but I don't know. This will be a hard guy to beat. So let's see what happens. Finally, the main event of the evening. This is also what partially had me buy this pay-per-view, because the main event was so interesting. With Jorge Masvidal, a guy who has been on the rise as a star in this sport since last year. He challenges the reigning and defending UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. And the welterweight division for the men is at 170 pounds. Kamaru this is his second title defense as the champion. Jorge and Kamaru do not like each other. And they're both very tough, very elite level guys who deserve to fight each other in this. Originally, Kamaru was not supposed to fight Jorge as of a week ago. He was supposed to fight a guy named Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns tested positive for the coronavirus, though, during the process of getting him to this event. in Abu Dhabi. Gilbert seems to be fine with the coronavirus, along with his trainer, who also got it. So they seem to be okay, which is great news. And apparently Gilbert's going to fight the winner of this fight pretty obviously for the next title shot. So it's all good. But Jorge and Kamaru was originally the fight that was supposed to happen, you know. But as I explained in the preview show, the UFC and Jorge had a lot of contract negotiation disputes because Jorge believed he deserved to be paid more for this fight. He felt like he was one of the more marketable guys in the UFC as of last year, with his gigantic wins over Darren Till by knockout, Ben Askren by a 5-second record-breaking knockout, and by beating up Nate Diaz, one of the biggest stars in the sport, in Madison Square Garden. So he is a big star. And if he would have beat Kamaru for this fight, he would have been a mega star with this, but he didn't. He lost to Kamaru via unanimous decision, where the judges scored it either 50-45 or 49-46 via Kamaru winning almost all 5 rounds, according to the judges' eyes. Some had him win only 4 rounds instead of all 5. A couple of them, I think, had him, though, winning all 5 rounds. So, very unanimous decision. Jorge was trying to outstrike him very early, but Kamaru is a lot bigger than him, a lot stronger, and he's a national championship level wrestler. So he just muscled Jorge to the fence and proceeded to grind him out until he could take him down and try to beat him there. Jorge, though, to his credit, he's very hard to control. He kept getting up. He kept thwarting a national champion wrestler's efforts to keep him down in a grappling match, and Jorge kept getting up. So Jorge's an elite level fighter, but Jorge also got this call to fight on 6 days' notice, and he didn't seem like he was in the best shape to fight, so that definitely plays a role. No excuses, though. I mean, Kamaru deserves a lot of respect. He's arguably in line to becoming the greatest welterweight of all time. You know, he's getting to that point. Starting to get into that argument now. So it's getting scary how good he is. I knew from the get-go that this guy from Nigeria, Kamaru Usman, he was going to be a serious threat going forward because of his wrestling skills, and he's proved it. He's, like he says, he's a problem for everyone in that division. So, yeah. Jorge and Kamaru, though, they shook hands after the fight. It was a competitive fight. Jorge never was in super big trouble, but he never got Kamaru in trouble at all, really, during this fight. I don't want to say that. He definitely struck him a couple times, but and it was clear that Kamaru didn't want any of Jorge striking. But besides that, Kamaru won the fight, and by out-strategizing him with his superior grappling skills and overall controlling him. So Kamaru won the fight. It will be interesting to see what happens. I think people are more curious about Jorge Masvidal, and they still don't like Kamaru Usman. Hell, you know, I'm sure Kamaru's a nice guy, and I'm sure he's an awesome guy, really fucking awesome guy. But even as a fan, I have to agree with him. I don't really like Kamaru either. I just don't. So, I don't know. That's just my take. I just don't care for him. His agent also doesn't seem very likable. If you met that guy in the media, I haven't met him, but I've seen him on camera in interviews. Doesn't seem that likable to me. Nope. So yeah, I see Kamaru obviously is going to fight Gilbert Burns next for the welterweight title. Dana White even said so, which is rare in the post-fight conference of what's going to happen next for fighters. He doesn't normally go there, but he said he's for sure fighting Gilbert Burns next for the welterweight championship. So pretty much slotted and scheduled. As for Jorge Masvidal, I mean, he's not going to fight Conor McGregor now. He would have if he would have won this fight, maybe. But I can see Jorge fighting an arch nemesis like Colby Covington for his next fight. I think that would be super interesting. I could see him fighting Leon Edwards, who's another high-level welterweight, and he's had a beef with him as well. Jorge has a lot of options. He could fight Nate Diaz again, because they didn't really finish that fight. It was by a stoppage. So, and Nate wants to run it back. Nate's maybe the biggest star in the sport behind Conor. So, what Nate wants, Nate gets sometimes. So, yeah. Jorge is still a big star. Everybody loves him. He's on the cover of the new UFC video game, which was announced last night as well. He's on the cover with the middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya. So, yeah, Jorge's continuing to be a big star. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, that's the whole card. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. Overall, I say I like the card, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the shows going forward as the pandemic rolls along. Hopefully, we gain progress overall for the world as we go forward here. But I won't have to worry about the sport of MMA because the UFC has got that form of entertainment covered for me, with or without a pandemic. So, excellent job, UFC. You deserve all the success from this show, and I'm very proud, I guess, and impressed. So, good job, man. I'm very impressed. But until then, I am going to go to bed a happy man and talk about this sport later as a new event happens again on Fight Island on Wednesday. This is what happened when they started events in America as well. They had like 3 events within a week because they were so backlogged on fighters not getting fights for months due to everything being shut down, fights not being able to happen. UFC is going to make up for that this week for the international fighters, just like how they did for the American fighters a couple months ago. So, next fight card is on Wednesday. Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige. Look for my review of that video. Should come up very shortly. So until then, I'll catch you on the flip side, and I hope you have a great week coming in. See you soon, guys. Have a good night. Bye.